Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 49, brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear. Today, John and I are reflecting on our 2017 seasons and looking forward to 2018. All right, we are live, and you are listening to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today, for better or for worse, you are stuck with just John and I catching up on our 2017 hunts. We're going to do a little bit of reflection, might get all up in the feels, feel good about 2017, maybe feel bad about it, maybe be a little cathartic about it. But with that being said, I'm joined by my brother from another mother, John Utah. What's up, my man?
What's up, brother? How's it going, man?
It's good, man. I feel like we've seen each other way too much, and not that I don't like seeing you, but we've seen each other a lot just in comparison to how often we get to have some FaceTime.
That's definitely true. I mean, we went 11 months without seeing each other, and then I've seen you like 6 days or something out of the last 30.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's a bunch.
Yeah, no, it's like we almost need a break, you know? It's like this relationship is moving too fast for me.
It's not you, it's me. I need some time.
The classic, it's not you, it's me. I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
But before we get jumping into stuff, you know, folks, today what John and I want to do is really just kind of look at what happened in our 2017 season. This is the time of year where you kind of take pause and maybe reflect a little bit on what went well, you know, what didn't go so well, where did you make some mistakes, where are some places where you could do some things a little bit better, a little bit more efficiently, you know, and then anything that you picked up or learned that we want to implement into next year. And then we might even dive into a little bit of some of the states that we're considering to hunt next year and start to think a little bit about next year, not too much because, you know, it's a little early to start mapping out all those plans and details. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a second to talk about our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Wicked Tree Gear, the longest lasting, fastest cutting, toughest tree trimming equipment you've ever used. Simply the toughest saws on earth. How tough are they? Tough enough to come with a lifetime warranty. So if you are thinking of picking up a handsaw or a pole saw, do yourself a favor and visit wickedtreegear.com and use the promo code TRUTH at checkout to get yourself a 20% discount on your purchase. We're also brought to you by Exodus Outdoor Gear. Wish you could find a trail camera that lasted longer than a year or two. Yeah, I was just at the outdoor show in Harrisburg, and I heard a lot of folks wishing they could find one that would last a little longer than a year or two. And so look no further than Exodus. Right now, they have 2 cameras available, the Lift 2 and the Trek, and both are covered by their no bullshit 5-year warranty and theft policy. If you're interested in checking those guys out, hit up ExodusOutdoorGear.com and save yourself some cash when you use the promo code TRUTH. We're also brought to you by Tecumani Seed. Go ahead and spread your seed in the deer woods, not in the biblical sense, but in the food plot sense. No matter if you're in the South, the Midwest, or the North, Tecumani has your food plot needs covered. Visit them at Tecumani.com and use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and save yourself 20%. And last but not least, one of my favorite things to talk about is the ice bag. I called it by its right name this time, which I like to affectionately refer to as the body bag. And these Glacier coolers are simply the world's finest. Whether you're hunting, camping, or fishing, you'll enjoy smarter design, stronger construction, and superior insulation of Glacier coolers. Visit them at glaciercoolers.com. Promo code TRUTH. Save yourself some cash. So Johnny, 2017, man. So let's get in the Wayback Machine. I actually tried to do a little bit of uncovering. A little bit of espionage work, and I went back to listen just briefly to our 2017 goals podcast to reminisce on what our goals were. So if you wouldn't mind, I know we didn't really, and actually when we went through that, we didn't state it explicitly what our goals were, but if we could go back in the Wayback Machine, what were your kind of plans or intentions for the 2017 season?
So 2017 was going to be my second fall hunting in Iowa, but my first full year, you know, from shed hunting all the way through. So 2017 goals were expand some food plots. I picked up another piece of property. You never know how that property is going to hunt. So my plans for 2017 was to run as many cameras as I could and really take some inventory and learn the property. But like I said, most importantly, my biggest goal was opening up ground and to focus on food plots. Try to get more food in on between my personal property and the other property down the road.
Right. So what about as far as your deer goals? Like, I know you had a couple targets on your list, so how about, did you have a plan as far as like what characters you were looking to wrap a tag around? Were you more just looking for an age class? Again, let's just remind folks what your kind of plan was as far as like the deer you were looking to harvest.
Well, if they're not 200 incher, I was going to let them all walk. No, I'm kidding.
Me too.
To steal a line from a buddy of mine, actually at the Harrisburg show, he said it great. And I'm like, that's perfect. I was like, that's me. He's like, I'll never kill a 180 if a 150 walks in front of me first, Yeah,
exactly.
So no, there was one particular buck this year that I definitely, I would have liked to have connected with, had the opportunity of seeing him, but didn't get it done. A shotgun hunter on a neighboring property did, so good for him. But this year, I'll be honest, there was a lot of good up and coming deer that were a little young, but there was really only one standout buck that I said, I'd really like to connect. But I'm always out there welcoming all newcomers, during the rut that want to cruise through that maybe I've never. I'm different. If I don't have a trail camera picture of him, that's okay. Yeah. I'll still shoot at him. Yeah. I don't have to have 10 years of sheds. Is that a bonus? Heck yeah. But by no means am I going to let a good mature deer walk past me in shooting range. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have any sheds from him and I don't have any trail camera pictures. So I think I'm going to let that stranger go. Heck no, man.
Right.
That's not me.
Yeah, I hear that, man. I'm the same way for the most part, right? It's like I'm an equal opportunity harvester.
Sure.
If the deer that walks by trips my trigger, and he's within range, he could be in trouble. I think, just I don't want to speak for you, man, but I think one of your big goals, was your Montana hunt, man. You know what I mean? Was getting that speed.
Yeah.
And
yeah, for sure. And I was just so focused, thinking whitetails. Definitely. I mean, I'm always going to be able to hunt whitetails. I don't know. It's not like going to Montana, something that I'm going to definitely do every year. So definitely for 17, I would say my biggest goal for the year was to have a successful, fun hunt out there in Montana. And it almost didn't happen. But, into overtime, it did happen. So that was super, super cool. And it was a bucket list hunt that I can check off. And that was Montana gets in your soul, and chasing those critters around. They're humbling and fun all at the same time.
Yeah, man. Like the Montana definitely gets in your soul. Definitely. I don't know that there's been a day since I was there that's gone by that I haven't thought about it at least once. Just kind of thinking about the stuff that I got to see and, just the landscape and stuff like that. And then you also had like the kicker out of all that was like you had a kick-ass film that came out of all that. And I know is it released officially for public consumption? Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yep. So. Luminox dropped it and I've shared it over to the Air Wild page and my personal page and stuff. But yeah, and that was another thing was, hunts like that, and I'm not saying you don't want to film all your hunts, but and I definitely don't want to call any hunt a run-of-the-mill hunt. But, when you're traveling out of state like that, chasing a different animal that I can't go out of my backyard, I mean, there's no antelope in Iowa. So
right.
I definitely wanted to film it, and I wanted to tell the story of, hey, last year I came out here and I busted my butt and I didn't get it done. So I'm nobody special, you know what I mean? But came back out and to do it again. So I wanted to have that filmed, and I had a camera guy all set up for it. And like about a week, or maybe might have been 9 days before the hunt, I had a guy back out on me. And then I was scrambling and trying to find somebody else that could go out there with me and film. And I had a buddy of mine step up, and he was able to take some time off work and go out there with me. So it all kind of worked out. But yeah, it was kind of hectic. As there was one point where I was completely convinced that I was going to go out there with a tripod and a camera and try to self-film, self-stock an archery antelope in the plains. So,
dude, if you would have pulled that off, that'd have been pretty epic, I have to say.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I have a feeling I probably would have broken the camera and the tripod somewhere on day like 1.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I get frustrated just trying to film, deer, turkeys, like, so, you know what I mean? So I couldn't imagine trying to do that in that kind of setting. But, for me, man, my goals this year were kind of shifting. Of course I had the Montana hunt as well. And, I was out hunting elk and mule deer, and, I didn't really have a goal of necessarily harvesting an elk. Now that was the ultimate goal, right? It was to bring one home, but it wasn't like it was the end all be all. If it happened, it happened. If it didn't, it didn't. I was really more just looking for the experience, and I got it tenfold, and that was awesome. Just being able to see the landscape. I got to go to full draw on a couple muleys and on a nice elk, and my buddy took a nice elk, which, I know we covered that in another topic, so I won't get into too many of the details. But for whitetail, I had that deer Lucky that I was following on the farm, just as a reminder for everybody, and followed him for a couple years, and had a good hunt for him in late season in 2016 that I really kind of got on him and really got to know the deer and learn the deer really well. Got some intel over the summer, and I knew pretty well where he was bedding, and had a great opening weekend here in PA with a cold front that it was just the right time to kind of go in after him, and all the chips or all the cards and everything kind of came together in that plan during that set. And he just was in range, but just behind some garbage, and I couldn't get a shot, and he was with a couple other deer, and one got spooked, and he just turned around and walked away, and Lucky followed him out, and that was the last I saw of him. A buddy of mine actually took him, and we talked about this on a different podcast as well. A buddy of mine took him in rifle season. I was super stoked for him. So that kind of effectively ended that hunt. And then, I didn't really have a goal, for anything necessarily around where I live in the eastern part of PA. It was really, I just kind of threw a Hail Mary and went for broke, the one day, and just went and did a set somewhere where I thought that could possibly be good, and ended up wrapping my tag around a nice PA 8-point and was super stoked about it, and that my other goal, for my dad's property, since it was new, kind of like you, John, was, to a degree, I know you have more intimate knowledge about, the properties that you're hunting this year than maybe I do about my dad's place, because I've never really been able to be on it. So this year was really just I took a wait and see approach and just hung cameras and let the cameras do the work. And I've managed to stay out of there. I didn't hunt it at all. And, the intel was good, and I'm getting this year, I should say, I hope to reap the rewards of it, because every nice deer that we had on the property, fingers crossed that they all made it through gun season, or at least a handful of them did. We're all walking in daylight. So, I think next year, as long as they've made it through, I should have some pretty good opportunities on that property. And as far as PA deer go, there's a couple of nice ones there that I wouldn't mind running into. And those were kind of my goals for the year. So for me, it was kind of like, missed out on one, had a great experience in Montana, which, let's call it a 50% deal. And then Eastern PA, it was a 100% deal. It worked out. So I can't complain too much. So speaking of that, certain things worked out, certain things don't. If you had to go back and kind of think of your season as a whole, like all the different things that you did, all the different sets, all the different setups, different approaches, right? What specifically are you taking away from this season saying, like, I really, like, this piece worked for me? Like, this is something that worked.
I'm trying to think. What worked was entry exits. Mm-hmm. So I did find a couple of entries and exit points on a new piece of property that I'm very comfortable are my best ways for certain wins, to enter and exit that property. Mm-hmm. Drought played a major factor in my food plots. So like on my personal property, a lot of things that some of the early hinge cutting and early trails and some of the food plot expansion, I didn't get to actually see how that was going to work or not work, because I didn't have any plots this year on my personal piece. So I'm going to have to do all that over again just to figure it out to see if it's good or bad. But I was able to connect on a buck this year. And of course that's everybody's goal.
Right.
Unfortunately the year didn't end with me killing multiple 200 inchers, isn't that the ultimate goal?
Yeah. There's one guy that keeps just kind of
but-
setting the bar that much higher for everybody.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this year I'm holding out since I didn't kill a 200 this year, I think I'm going to hold out for a 205 next year.
Yeah.
No, it's, and not to sound cheesy, but every season you get to hunt, you do learn something.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you didn't kill the target buck, you still take something away from it. I found out that one of the properties, I found out a certain time that it gets hotter, so next year I'll probably use some of that knowledge and I may not hunt. There's a couple of weeks that I might just stay out of there completely. So I did learn that. So I do think I'm a little more prepared for this season.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say that it was a total waste, but I can't say that it was a total success either, because I made some mistakes this year as well. And I guess if you flip that around, you can say, okay, I learned from my mistakes. But as far as the season snapshot 2017, I made some mistakes. I got some things to learn on that new property.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It's, for me, I think what worked for me, if I defined what worked first, was switching. And this might not sound like a big deal to a lot of people, but this was the first year that I was using a lone wolf Assault 2 stand and sticks. Right, that was when I would hunt mobile before, I would use a climber. And so this was the first year that I went stand and sticks for all my run and gun sets. And that worked really well for me. It was the reason why I think, I would say it's 75% the reason why I was able to kill the deer I did kill this year. Because it was literally the only tree that you were able to get into, and you weren't getting it in any other way other than with a stand and sticks. So that for me was what worked really well. I think, another thing that worked well this year for me is something like I said previously that'll be a benefit to me next year, not so much this year, which was I was showing more patience with a property and not running in and hunting it, because that new property that my dad picked up, like I wanted to go hunt it so bad because it was just new and different, right? And I managed just to stay out, let the cameras do their work, and and I think that'll work for me next year. I think another thing that I feel has been growing over the past 2 years more specifically is just hunting from my instinct a little bit more. And that worked for me again this year. That tree that I got into this year, it's like I'd only been on that property where I killed my deer. That was the second time I walked onto it. I thought I was in a good place as far as like the sign that I was seeing, and decided that was the tree I should be in, and it worked out. So I'm trying to get better at not having, like you said, John, it's like not necessarily always relying on the trail camera data to tell me where I should be hunting necessarily. Like, if I don't have a picture of a buck, it's okay if one comes by and it tickles my fancy. And just trying to be a little bit more instinctive, I think, than getting caught up in how many times have I seen him, and, is he always moving during this time of the day? And, some of this stuff is like, they're deer, they're wild animals. So yes, they do have patterns, and yes, there are some things you can learn from them, but by and large, some of it is just saying, you know what, I think this is where I need to be. It just feels right. You know what I mean? Like some of it is just kind of, it's not any more complicated than that. So that was, I think, something that worked well for me this year. But as you said, there was plenty that I did. That's, as you kind of alluded to, the what didn't work aspect of it. That bucket is probably larger than the what worked. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what didn't work. So what were some specific things you took away from this year that were just like, man, I tried X, Y, and Z, and that completely shit the bed?
Well, what led to the entry exit? First part of the year, a couple of the places that I was using as a travel route, it turned out to be that I was walking right alongside a bedding area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they were pretty much just kind of like watching me walk in And then once I got settled in, they would just, when they got up to leave, they would go a different direction, you know?
Right.
And that took a little bit of, to figure out. And, you know, moving cameras around, I started to see some movement and, you know, in certain areas. So that kind of was a little telltale sign. So I boogered up some entry exits. I waited too long to plant some of my plots this year, especially on my soybeans. You know, my plan was I want to have the greenest beans in the early season. I want everybody else's beans to be yellow and mine will still be lush and green. I waited so long that the drought set in, and when I planted my beans, we didn't have rain for like another 42 days or something after that.
I remember for a while, like we had almost like a daily rain check-in with each other, like to see if it was raining. And I remember the one time you actually, I think you called me and you were outside with flashlights with the kids, reseeding the plot in the dark.
Oh yeah. I was. I remember because I was inside the house and my wife, she said something. She's like, "Yeah, they're calling for rain in the morning," and I'm like, "Really? In the morning? What time?" She's like, "Well, actually, it's like 3 or 4 in the morning," and I'm like, "Kids, everybody grab a flashlight." And they're like, "What? We're getting ready for bed." I'm like, "Not now. We're going out to overseed, you know." So we went out and overseeded a plot that night, and then it ended up raining the next morning, and we got like 3.5 inches of rain in 3 hours or something. So it completely just washed off everything, and
right.
I was back to square one.
Yeah, and at that point, the soil, you haven't had rain in so long, the soil is just like rock at that point. So it's like, you know, it's you would like to have like a nice like 3-day soaker of like a nice drizzle.
That's what I want. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So like I said, entry exits, I boogered up. It was a brand new property. I should have read it better, but you know, I'm a firm believer a lot of times with a new property, you can get lucky, and by all means, I would love to be that guy, but I'm just not I'm not that guy. So usually I have to screw something up one time before I learn it. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, school, the Johnny Utah School of Hard Knocks.
Right. I wrote the book.
Started at a university, got a T-shirt.
That's
good
right.
to go. Man,
Yeah.
I think for me, you know, what didn't work was really Ohio, like the state didn't work for me this year. I love hunting Ohio, man. It's one of those places where, you know, PA is, as most folks know out there, although it's getting better, you know, it's like I've saw a lot of nice deer come out of Pennsylvania this year. So as far as like the quality of animals that people are harvesting in PA, it's on the up, which is good. But still, Ohio is one of those places where it's like anything can happen and it could be right around the corner, which is, you know, one of the reasons why I love to hunt it. I went to a different piece of public land this year, was able to scout it once during the summer, and it has low deer density and knew it going into it. And he was hunting with our buddy Chad. We had great stuff on camera, man. But when we got there, it was like someone shut the deer faucet off and just all the movement stopped. And, you know, I definitely banged up, an entrance in the one area. It was a disaster. I was walking through a clear cut and got off the little path that is the only way to get through the clear cut and got caught up in briars with my stand on my back. It was like, what should have taken me 30 minutes to get into my stand took me an hour. So it was one of those deals, and you're just completely sweated up, and you're climbing your tree as days break in, and like just disaster. You know, so that was obviously a poor entrance. And then the other thing that I think I learned there, so where patience has paid off on my dad's property, or hopefully will pay off next year on my dad's property by leaving it alone, this past season, the opposite is, I guess the inverse is what happened in Ohio, which is I was too patient, and only, you know, and when I say only having 8 days to hunt or whatever, I mean, it sounds like a lot, and it is, but when you don't have a lot of information on the property, you got to try to move and find the deer. And I was content to kind of sit and wait, because I knew you weren't going to get run over with deer. I knew that. You know, you could sit for 2 or 3 days and not see a deer, right? And I knew that. But I didn't take into the account that, like, I wasn't seeing deer, Chad wasn't seeing deer, other guys we were talking to around that area weren't seeing a lot of deer either. And I just didn't think about it in time, where it's like I should have been more aggressive and been more willing to move, and not sit a spot that I thought was going to be good. because some sign was there, pictures were there, in advance of us getting there, and I know that you could go days without seeing a deer in a spot, but like just based on like not just what I was seeing, but what other guys were telling me, I should have taken taken warning and been more mobile, and made some moves. So that was my kind of like big what didn't work in that scenario. So as you'd mentioned, there's always lessons learned. So let's go ahead and start with the Johnny Utah University of Hard Knocks lessons learned for this year, and any changes that you think you're going to make for next year to try to put yourself in the chips or to try to smooth over some of those lumps.
Let's see. Oh, well, I was going to correct you. It's not technically not a university. It's an online school.
Okay. Nice.
No.
Is it like the school you were telling me about at dinner the other night? Where you cruise for the babes?
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, it was one of those.
It's one of those.
It's just like that.
Yeah.
So basically, this year, I'm gonna get on top of my plots this year. I'm not gonna be as dangerous and live on the edge of the drought. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we don't have another hot, dry summer like we did last year. So I'm going to get on top of that a little bit quicker. This is the second year hunting that property. So last year, that property, although it was new, I didn't get a chance to shed hunt it. So I will get to shed hunt it this year. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot more and pick up some more movement and stuff like that. Identify some different areas on that property that could potentially be some good run and gun spots, for this fall. So, right. Going into season 2 on that property, continuing to learn. I picked up. I went in halfsies on another property with a buddy of mine. We're sharing a lease together. Nice. It's a new property to him. It's new to me. So who knows? Maybe I'll get lucky, or maybe he'll get lucky on that property, and one of us will connect on something really quick. But the importance of that one is going to be to shed hunt it this year, and get some cameras out and see how much intel we can learn from that. That's my biggest. That's my biggest things, man. The givens are going to be that we're going to shoot. We're going to try to be proficient. Mm-hmm. Every year that I do run and gun sets, I get faster. I think I get quieter. And, so for me, it comes down on the property side right. and weather.
Right.
And unfortunately, sometimes those are things you can't control. I told a buddy of mine the other day, when you get a new property, you can look at it all you want on aerials. Mm-hmm. But until you get in there and hunt it and scout it, you really don't learn it until then,
Yeah. No, I hear you there, man. It's there's one thing with having boots on the ground in terms of scouting. There's a whole other, data set or set of information that you learn with boots on the ground in a tree stand, where you're observing from locations for hours, there's a lot. I think, there's a lot of value in that, especially if you're doing observation sets, especially, if you have the opportunity to, and you have good vantage points where you can do that, there's tons to be learned from that.
Sure.
I think for me, lessons learned for this year, I think one, I'll start where you started, which is food plots. My dad's property is brand new, so we didn't do anything on it this year. There's one plot that I'm going to put on, that I'm going to put in the ground this year. I thought about putting 2 on, but I talked to our buddy, Jeff Sturgis, and he kind of talked me out of it, which was nice of him to do, give me a little bit of advice on that. So I think I have the, where I want to place it figured out. And I think I'm going to do, because it's not a big piece, I think I'm going to do a lot of just fall food, fall and winter food. The reason being is I don't want to turn it into a doe factory and move all the bucks off and change the movement of the deer. Because quite honestly, like what I'm seeing on camera, I have good movement. And so now it's just more about trying to hold them on the property a little longer. And so they're not just on and off. So, and really focusing on the fall when I'm going to be hunting versus the summer when I don't care whether they're there or not. And then the placement of it too is really in the one corner of the property because I want to use the depth of cover behind it. So I want room behind it to be able to have different levels of depth of cover for where does should bed, and then where ultimately where bucks could possibly bed before you get to the neighboring property. So that's one of the lessons learned. I don't know if this is a lesson learned or if this just is a smart move necessarily, but I'm probably going to switch up where I'm headed in Ohio this year. Probably going to potentially go back to where I had hunted previously and had some good luck, because I had a buddy that went there this year and climbed the same area that I was in whenever I killed my buck in 2016, and he saw the same type of rutting action that I saw. So it tells me that place is just kind of annually goes off about that in that same time frame. So I'm probably going to switch up places where I'm going in Ohio. And then whenever I'm hunting some of these places, especially public land and stuff, I need to just probably be a little bit more aggressive, and I think that's the big lesson learned. The one thing that you mentioned I definitely need to do and continue to do is, like you said, it's like I shoot a lot, a couple of days a week. So it's like I'm always going to shoot. I just like shooting. But the other thing I want to make a priority this year is just to get quicker with the stand and sticks and get quieter. Definitely a big improvement from whenever at the beginning of the year, the first couple of times getting in to the last climb. But there's definitely work there to be done to make sure I have a nice stealthy ascent into my tree. And I think that's probably, the things that were my big takeaways, from this year that I needed to do better. I think, I scouted well this year as well as I could. I think I read sign as well as I could. For me, playing the wind is always one of those things where I sometimes am very cautious and cognizant of the wind, and other times I have a don't give an F, I'm just going to do it kind of approach, which, a lot of folks will say that's like the death for a deer hunter, and I get it. But it's, I don't know, sometimes I just kind of throw caution into the wind and go aggressive no matter, what my wind is doing. If I think I can get away with it, I guess, or if I think I can marginally get away with it. But yeah, I think those are the lessons learned. So, the last thing, man, I think to talk about for, and just this might be more of a prelude, if you were, a foreshadowing for future podcasts, but are the states we're considering to hunt this year? Is there any change in plans, as far as the number of states you're going to try to get into this year, or what, the type of hunts you're going to try to get into? Before we continue our conversations, let's take a minute to talk about Wicked Tree Gear saws. Are you still using one of those flimsy plastic hand saws, a girly man saw? If you are, then I suggest you head over to wickedtreegear.com and replace it with one of the toughest saws on earth. Use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and save 20% on your purchase, and also receive free ground shipping. And now back to the show.
As of right now, Montana is a possibility. It's more of a alternate. Last night I went online and went ahead and applied for my win card.
So do tell, what is a win card?
A win card is your requirement before you can get a Canadian hunting license.
Oh, okay. Nice. You're going across the border.
So, yeah, there's some Canadian friends of mine that have been talking to me about their hunter host program. If you're a resident Canadian, you can once every 3 years you can bring up somebody from the U.S. Into Canada to hunt with you. So you got to hunt with them on their properties, or with them, whether it be public or an area that they're legally allowed to hunt on. And so, anyways, I am. The plan, the goal, the dream is Canadian moose hunt with my bow and mule deer.
Dude, that would be epic. Canadian moose hunt with a bow. And then, of course, you're going to film it.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Dude, that would be...
So that's the plan. If that does not pan out, my win card, it's super cheap, and your win card's good for like 5 years.
Nice.
I'll be disappointed if it doesn't come through, but if that doesn't happen, then Montana is a possibility. I think I've decided. Last year I spent a little bit of time in Missouri, and that was kind of a bust. It's cheap, it's pretty inexpensive for a non-resident over-the-counter tag, and you get $2.
Nice.
But to be honest with you, unless a piece of property comes up, or if I get some time to go scout some public or something like that, that may be the only chance I have of maybe trying to connect on something in Missouri. I do like that their season starts, before the Iowa season.
Right.
You get about it comes in 2 weeks before Iowa's. So, it'd be nice to start there for a couple of weeks, but I could probably group that into things that I screwed the pooch on last year in 17 was, I started September 1st in Montana. I came home September 6th, September 7th, and then September 15th, I was in Missouri, and then October 1, I was in Iowa, and trying to work and juggle it all. So there was times that I possibly, I didn't get to hunt exactly the way I wanted to hunt, because it was like, well, I got to work this day, so my only day to hunt's this day, and I probably shouldn't go to that set, but I don't really have a lot of options because I can't hunt again for another week. So I'm going to have to kind of force the issue a little bit. So,
right.
Which adds to frustrations because of botched hunts, and just mentally you're not really hunting the way you want to hunt. So you're kind of having to hunt the way work dictates or family schedules dictate, which ends up frustrating me.
Yeah.
So that being said, maybe Canada. If Canada doesn't work, Montana. Other than that, Iowa. Now, turkeys, I'll go back to Kentucky and hunt turkeys in Kentucky, and Iowa. But
nice.
But yeah, for whitetails, that's kind of, in all honesty, and I might end up just doing Iowa for whitetails this year.
And that would just be terrible to only be able to hunt Iowa. I feel really bad for you.
Oh, I feel so bad for you. That sucks.
Exactly. Yeah. I think my plans are, of course, home state PA is a given. Definitely going back to Ohio this year.
Sure.
Those are kind of the two, you can put those in the book, type of thing, write it down on the calendar. The things that are up in the air is the Montana trip. Like it's there. I really want to do it. I really want to, wrap a tag around an elk. It's just a goal that I have, and I just love hunting that country, man. I love how rugged it is. I love how tough it is to hunt. I feel like I'm accomplishing something whenever I do that type of hunt. My body, on the other hand, might say no, only because, it's like after all the grind or whatever. I think I told you, it's like I was at the massage therapist, I was at the chiropractor here like the last couple weeks. My back and neck have just been screwed up from the hunting season, from carrying all the weight on my shoulders, and then in Montana and all that, and I'm training with like the weighted vest because I'm an idiot, and then carrying stands and packs during whitetail season is just like I was jacked up. And so Montana is one of those things where I really want to do it, but there's, like you said, there's like a family home work thing that kind of is something to consider as well. It's like we just bought our house last year, and so maybe I should spend time here kind of updating some things and stuff like that instead of being out in Montana. So we're still trying to figure that out. And then, but if I don't do that, then I think I'm either going to try to do Kansas or Illinois. So if I don't go to Montana, I'm going to try to add one more whitetail state. And those are the two that have kind of come up. So I don't know. I'm going to end up going to probably two out of state hunts, whether it's Montana or not is yet to be seen. But if not, then I'll try to get myself into another big whitetail state and see if I can't get into some hammers, man. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Kansas opens early too. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you knew this or not, but do they open early enough to go after velvet bucks? I think they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was kind of my goal, because do a state that opens early. That way I can go down and hunt the early season there. That way I'm not missing, because I really like hunting, the end of October, beginning of November in Ohio.
Sure.
So I kind of wanted to pick two places that the seasons, like good parts of the seasons, don't kind of overlap. That way I'm not having to make a choice during, a time of year. I can just kind of go enjoy a really good hunt in the early season in a state that gives, provides really good early season hunting, and then hunt Ohio, which I know has, really good hunting, especially the spot that I'll be going back to this year for the end of October, beginning of November. So those, I think, are my plans, man, as far as states go. I don't know, man. Is there anything else we need to touch on? I think that's pretty much the size of it. We talked about the things we screwed up, the things we did well, places we might want to go, things we might want to see, and that John has a university or an online school.
Online, yeah. And that's the thing. You work at your own pace. You can earn your degree a little faster. You can work from the comfort of your home. Low enrollment cost.
Right.
Just a lot of pain and suffering when you screw up.
Right. For a second there, I thought you were diving into like a really deep philosophical approach to deer hunting. Then I realized you were actually talking about your online school. I was like, all right.
No, dude, I'm telling you, out in PA, I know this name, Tim Sylvia, 5-time UFC champion.
Yep.
He's got a farm real close to me, and he'll shoot me a text message, throughout the season a few times. Hey, how's it going? What happened? And he's like, what happened to that one really big buck you were after? I'm like, shotgun hunters, drove and they flushed him and they got him. And he's like, oh, okay. And, what about this other property? Well, the drought killed it. And finally one day he sends me a text message and he goes, dude, if you didn't have bad luck, you wouldn't have luck at all. He's like, seriously, stay away from me. Like, I don't want that crap to rub off on me. He's like, I don't get it. It's like, I have never met somebody with the worst luck than you have. I'm like, thanks. That's awesome.
Right. Appreciate it. Yeah, exactly, man. I know, man, you've had a tough year, dude. Like, you definitely had a tough year in the deer woods. We had a lot of conversations in the evenings just about hunts gone wrong and stuff like that. So I think you're due for some good luck, man. Like, that's for sure.
I'm due. Hey, when if I have a good season and somebody's like, oh yeah, he got lucky, I'll be like, damn right.
I did about time.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me at all
right.
if somebody calls it luck.
Exactly.
You need a lot of luck, man.
Yeah.
You can do everything right or everything that you think is right, but at the end of the day, they are wild animals, and you cannot shoot what's not in front of you. You do everything you can to put yourself in those opportunities, but doesn't always happen.
Yeah, man. Because even thinking about the stuff we just talked about, like what went right, what went wrong, and stuff like that. There's things that we did that we consider that we did wrong that maybe aren't, technically wrong. You know what I mean? It's like they're just like the deer wasn't there. Me hunting more aggressive in Ohio would have made a difference. I don't know. I'm just assuming that would make a difference because I didn't see anything, or I wasn't seeing a lot of deer. But
yeah.
I may have been hunting it just the way I'm supposed to. And I just didn't, the deer just weren't in those spots. I just didn't have the luck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
no, I've always said too, I always use the example of, let's say a deer is walking from point A to point B, and you've done your homework, you've done your research, you have him pegged, that on that wind and that weather, he is going to walk from point A to point B. Well, somewhere between point A and point B, a coyote comes across his trail, bumps him off. What if a human, the neighbor's dog got loose and went across that trail, and it made him deviate from his trail, and he never makes it to point B where you were set up licking your chops ready for the ambush. And then do you go home and go, well, damn, I just screwed that up. I read that completely wrong, because maybe you read it completely right.
Right. And there might be times where you read it completely wrong and the buck you've been waiting for just happens to step out anyway. You know what I mean? It's like,
and you got completely lucky, and you're thinking, sweet, I'm awesome.
Yeah. And that's part of what keeps bringing us back, man, is just that, you don't know. You know what I mean? Because if we did know, man, how boring would it be? You know what I mean? It's that chess match that's just, is addictive, and you want more of it. And just the moment that you think that you have it pegged. I was telling someone a story, I think at Harrisburg this week. It was, someone who was coming by one of the booths, and we were talking about our seasons, and I was like, man, I was like, you never think you have it all figured out, right? It's like, it's just, better than that, right? I was like, but there's certain runs that you have of what will, I'll, use your term, man. Like you have good runs of good luck, you know what I mean? And some of it you make your own luck, right? Like you do your homework, and the preparation meets opportunity, right? It's like the opportunity was there, and I was prepared to take it, and so on and so forth. So there's an element of that too, and I was just saying, I was like, this year, I definitely got humbled going to Ohio and then the end of my season, because, if I went back to last year in 2016 from the hunt in Ohio, during the rut, and I killed that nice buck, I come back to PA, I hunt late season, I had that target deer lucky on camera. I sat 4 times for him and saw him 3 sits. You know what I mean? Just out of range, right? So those are pretty good sits. You know what I mean? Especially so the last handful of sits I had in 2016 were all I was on great deer. And then even the 3 sits before I killed my deer in Ohio, I was on bucks, So then you go into the beginning of this year, I set one time for lucky, saw him, right? So there's another good sit or quality sit. And then the next sit I had after that, I went to out here in the eastern part of the state, killed my buck, right? So that's a quality sit. And then I was in, Montana hunting, and I was into elk and mule deer. I went the full draw on animals and stuff like that. So those were quality hunts. And I was like, you get to this point where you're like, man, like, I don't want to say I've got this figured out, because you never do. But you're like, man, this is starting to all make sense for me. Like, it's starting to come together. I feel like I'm getting better. You know what I mean? Like, you get this like false sense of like, yeah, like I'm making good decisions. And then I go to Ohio and it's just like someone like Rochambeau'd me for like 8 days straight. You know what I mean? It just completely humbles you and you're like, yeah, I totally don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no. And this was something I've said this ever since I first started hunting after the first season. I decided that you can get up to 10% skill.
Right.
So the first year that I hunted, at the end of that season, because I didn't know anything, I was at a 0. But at the end of that first season, I thought that maybe I was up to 1% skill, 99% luck.
Right.
And then the next year, maybe I got to 2% or maybe 3%. And right now, I think I'm up to 10% skill and 90% luck.
Right.
And that's probably about as good as, I mean, I think I know that I'll continue to learn more stuff, but I think 10's as high as you can go.
Right.
I'm just convinced that there's still that 90% of luck element that's always going to be there.
Right. The Utah Online School, 10% passing.
Yeah, exactly.
Solid A-.
It's also we have after hour or extracurricular activities. It's called the School of Glasses Half Empty.
Right. Yeah.
As well.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, hey, before we get going, man, we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. We covered everything. I just want to take a quick second to say thank you to everybody at the Harrisburg Outdoor Show that stopped by and said hi to either John or I. It was awesome to meet all you guys. I know that you and I both had an opportunity to kind of meet with some of the folks who listen to the podcast or interact with us on social media. And it's funny because you know these people's names. You feel like you're friends, even though you've never seen each other face to face. So all the folks that stopped by and gave us a shout, we truly appreciate it. We thank all of you for tuning in and giving us some time to bend your ear for a while. And, if you guys didn't listen, it'd just be John and I talking on Skype once a week. To each other. So thanks everyone for coming in and checking us out. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and also as I had just mentioned, I want to make sure to give a big thanks to all of you who had stopped by to see John and I at the Great American Outdoor Show. Very much appreciate you guys swinging by and saying hi and sharing some hunting stories with us. Hopefully it's not a one-time thing. Hopefully we'll be able to meet up at different events, whether it's at the an archery shoot in the future, or if it's at some type of pint night supporting some type of conservation group. So anytime there is an event, if we're there, be sure to stop by and say hi to us. If you haven't yet, if it's not too much to ask, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast to make sure this ends up in your podcast feed on your mobile device every week. I'd be very much appreciative of you if you would do that one thing for us. And with that, we need to give a big shout out to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Wicked Tree Gear, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Tecumani Seed, Glacier Coolers, Ramcat Broadheads, and Trophy Taker Rests. And until next time, we'll see y'all.
It takes a special knowing to colorful damaged heads, broken letters, rationalize yourself in numbers, but I gotta get away from here. Gotta get away from here.